Hi everyone, welcome to our session. I'm Wesley Holden, the product advisor here at Totara Learning. You'll know me from the Totara community team and from Academy courses. Today we're taking a look at programs and certifications, managing your learning journeys in Totara Learn. I just popped to the next slide there. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording this session and we'll be posting it online after the session. It'll be available both via YouTube as well as through the Totara.community site. We keep all of our past webinars there in case you ever need to find one. Discussions and Q&A will continue on the Totara.community site, so if you don't already have a free account, please go and register for one. That gives you access to discussion forums and courses, best practices, all sorts of things that you'll want to have access to on your Totara journey. So just a couple of objectives for today. We're going to take a look at what the purpose of a program is outside of Totara, so what you actually use them for in training world. We'll talk about the difference between a program and a certification within Totara, and then we'll walk through the settings for both just to give you an idea of what capabilities are out there. So before I dive too deeply in, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat or into the Q&A area, just keeping in mind that we will be potentially saying these questions aloud and recording the answers. And so if you do want to remain anonymous, you can use the Q&A panel and ask questions anonymously as needed. So the first question then is, what is a program? And if you have any thoughts, please feel free to put them in the chat. What would you consider a program or a program of learning? There's lots of different terms for it, but they all kind of come down to the same thing. So I'll just leave the chat open, and a couple of the answers that I received earlier today, they sort of built on each other, which was lovely. A program is a set of courses that a user needs to take. Often it is a set that has prerequisites. They maybe need to be taken in a particular order. They may have completion requirements. You have to receive certain scores, or that you receive an overall completion of having completed so many activities. You may have to show up for some training, and your attendance could be part of that completion mark. So there's a lot of different variables in there that we're going to be dealing with. We have a couple of business case examples that are available on our website if you want to go take a look. The first one I'm going to pop up is the Humanitarian Leadership Academy. And just to pop that open so you can take a quick look, the HLA's role in the world is essentially to help train people who may be going anywhere in the world doing humanitarian missions. And so their training can be specific to particular regions, specific areas, specific cultures. Some of the training is generic, more like how to stop a bleeding wound, how to manage people, manage volunteers. And so there's kind of a wide range of training available from them. But their goal is dealing with disaster relief for the most part. Their training includes, and I'm just going to scroll down through to show you like a kind of a couple of screenshots of their platform. It's going to include technical training. It can include safety and security training, management essentials. So there's kind of a variety there of training that's going to be available. And one of the requirements that they had is that their courses needed to be reusable. If someone goes and completes a mission in Nepal, then they need to be able to take some of the knowledge that they already have. If they're then going to, let's say, like Uganda or Detroit, if they're going to those places and they've already received some of the training that they need for it, they don't want to have to repeat that training. They want to get to their work. That's the same for anyone in any job. So the goal with programs would be the ability to carry completions across and not have to redo a course. So once it's done, it's done. This required a little bit of customization in the case of their programs because they have so many volunteers. They actually allow people to self-enroll on programs, whereas with a standard Totara site, you are enrolled sort of on your behalf by an administrator or by the system automatically. And we'll talk about what that looks like here in a few minutes. And they had some other requirements for their site as well, things like uploading documents, forms, reporting, certificates, etc., things that you'd kind of expect to be there with any training that needs to be completed. Here's just a quick look at their site. People could go in, they can search, they can find the individual courses that they want, and some of those courses can come together to form a program of learning. So then we get into a little bit more Totara specific language. So what is a program in Totara? Pretty much the same thing. A program is a way of assigning learning, it's a method of assigning learning that allows you to sequence courses, set completion and completion dates, set renewal dates if needed. So if you have like a certification that can expire, you may have to renew it, take it again. And that's where certifications come in. So we'll talk about programs and certifications not entirely interchangeably, but please know that all of the functionality, with the exception of one thing, that exists in a program also exists in certifications. Certifications actually were born of programs. Programs existed in Totara first, and then a few years later, certifications were developed based on that original program functionality. So they behave pretty similarly. Both allow for self-paced course completion. Once a user is assigned to a program or a certification, they get to work through it at their own pace. You can have completion and due dates and things like that for it, but the user is sort of responsible for getting themselves kind of working through it. Both allow for reuse of courses, and so the way I think about Totara courses is that they're a lot like Lego blocks. You can use the same blocks to build lots of different things. So the ability to reuse courses and programs means that if I have a health and safety training course where you go take first aid, that's going to look the same for me as a warehouse worker as it does for someone who is maybe on the retail floor. So we could both take the same course, but one could apply towards my program as a warehouse staffer, and one could apply to a person's retail staff. So we can reuse the same coursework for both of those users. Certifications also allow for reuse of courses, but there is a caveat with it because when somebody is completing a certification, it means that they're having to go back and redo some work. Either they have a refresher course that they need to take that kind of, gives them new information based on previous topics they've already had, or they may have coursework that they need to complete every 2 to 3 years. For example, with my CPR certification, I had to repeat it every 2 years. So you are able to reuse existing courses, but you have to be careful with how you assign them to your users. So we'll talk more in depth about that. Programs can support competencies. So competencies are skills that are tracked in the system, and you can link coursework to them. So those Lego blocks can basically be linked to a particular skill. With certifications, you can't do that because with certifications, essentially, you need to be able to keep recompleting the course, whereas with competencies, with their linked courses, you complete them once and then you're done. You do need that repeated course completion, come back and take this refresher training every year. You're going to use a certification. If you need it to expire, the training to expire at some point, again, certifications, because programs don't expire. You take the coursework once and then you're done forever with it. And if you have any other learning pathway needs, things that I haven't expressed so far, let me know in the chat. And I can help you decide whether a program or a certification might be your best option, or if there's a different learning method in Totara that you should use. Because keep in mind, these are just 2 learning methods that are out there. There are other ways to assign learning, such as learning plans and audiences as well. So let's go ahead and take a look. What we're going to do is jump into a Totara system. Let's get rid of the HLA there. And we're going to walk through building a program, building a certification, so you can see the differences between those 2. And then we'll take a look at what a program actually looks like from a learner's perspective. So we're going to go ahead and under the site administration tools, and keep in mind that I am in Totara Learn version 12. If you are on 11 and before, you'll go under site administration and you'll find this program area, but for my case, I'm going to go under the cog here. I'm going to go under learning to programs. And with programs, they are categorized. So you can decide to put them in like topic-based categories or department-based categories or whatever makes the most sense for you. I've already got one. There's a miscellaneous that's there when you first install your site. It's just always installed. But then I have an onboarding category that I'm going to put some of my coursework into. So in this case, let's go ahead and build a new onboarding program. And this is specifically going to be for people who are going to work on my help desk. So we'll call this help desk. And I'm going to put it into the category onboarding. We also need to give it a short name. This is going to be a unique name for each of my programs. So we'll just say I'm calling it Support 101. And I don't necessarily need to fill all these things in. You can have an ID, you can have a date range where this program is going to be available to users. In my case, this is something that's just going to be ongoing for the next few years until we could decide to completely revise our training. We can give it a summary if we want to, and have an end note. Now, here's the thing to remember about the program. The user is going to be able to see this when they go to their course catalogs. If they go under Find Learning, they'll be able to go in and see that this program exists, if we want them to. But we don't necessarily need to have everybody see it. As onboarding, we don't necessarily care that, we don't need it to show up in our course catalog. No one's going to purchase this. So I'm only going to show it to my enrolled users. So basically, if you have to take it, you see it. If you don't have to take it, you don't see it. Then I'm going to scroll down through. There's some other settings down here as well, such as extension requests. So we are going to set a due date on this. We can allow our users to request an extension, potentially, if they need to. If they go on maternity leave or something like that, or get sick and don't have time to finish it, then we may want to give them extra time. So we'll leave that turned on. So I'm going to go ahead in. Now that we have our settings complete, our program exists out in the world, but it is not live. It has not been made available to any users yet because we have a couple more steps to complete. First, we need to go and add content to it because we need to say what the person actually needs to do as part of this program. And there's 3 types of content we can add. First, and I'm going to start at the bottom of the list, is a recurring course. So a recurring course is a way to say, I need someone to take this same course over and over and over again. That's literally what it is. This existed before certifications existed. This was how we managed something like a certification where people needed to come back and take training again. So keep in mind that there are other ways to manage repeated training. So in this case, we're going to say that the person needs to take that health and safety course. We'll say that it takes them about 30 days to complete, and we're going to have them repeat it every year. And let's say 14 days before they need to repeat it, the course is going to automatically duplicate itself. Because the way that recurring courses work is that in this case, every year, the course is going to create a new copy of itself. And when the person needs to complete the course the second time, they'll take the second version of the course. Next year, when they need to take it again, it will create another copy of itself, and it will create a third copy of that course. The benefit of this is that if you need to know exactly what coursework looked like when someone took it, this often happens with like technical training, with like airplane safety and things like that, where you need to see which technical specs somebody was trained with. This will allow you to do that because it's literally creating an archive of the course as it was when the person took it, and then they can take a new version where you can go in and update the resources and things like that without impacting the original version of the course. I'm going to go ahead and delete this and show you another type of content, and that's going to be competencies, which we talked about a little bit. So if I have a competency set up in the system that has coursework attached to it, meaning that to complete the competency, you have to complete a course, we can go and assign that competency in here. So we can see where it drops in the competency and any linked courses. In this case, this course doesn't actually have anything to do with fluent English, but that's okay. Because we know that the person needs to go and complete this. So we could say that the person, it will take them at least 15 days to complete this course to complete this competency. I'm going to delete that. The thing that you are most often going to use is going to be the set of courses, and this allows you to go and actually choose the courses from the system that you want the person to take. So I'm going to go ahead and add a set of courses. And the first thing that my folks need to take is their site orientation. They have to complete that before they can move on to anything else. So I'll go ahead and add that one course. And what we are using are called course sets. So course sets allow us to say, do whatever in course set 1, then do whatever in course set 2, and sort of break things up a little bit. So we can come in and say that this is my introduction, that the learner needs to complete the one course that's in here. We can say that, typically maybe that orientation takes 5 days, and that is my first course set. When the user is done with that, then they can move on to something else. So this will be the prerequisite for the other things. So I'll go ahead and add another set of courses. And now the user can take either health and safety, well, they need to take both health and safety and the Spanish immersion course, but I don't care what order they take them in. I just want them to take both of them. So I'm going to say, okay, go down to that second course set, and we'll call this localized training. The set name is just informational. And in this case, the learner needs to complete all of the courses. I don't care what order they do them in. I'm going to give them 30 days to complete both of those. You can also say that the user only needs to complete one of these courses, just some of them, then you specify how many. And you can also say all courses are optional. So if you want to offer some optional stuff, you can do that too. So we've got our minimum time required, just 30 days for both of the courses. And then I'm going to save at the bottom. But what I want to show you first is that right now I'm set to say, complete the introduction, then the next course set is available. We could also say, complete introduction or complete the next set. Or we can say, complete the introduction and complete the next set. Both the or and the and say, I don't care what order they're in as long as you do them. The and says you have to do both of these course sets. So you can make this as complex as you choose to. Right now it's go complete one course, then go complete these other two courses. I'm going to save changes. And at this point, the content is now part of the program. I've just used existing courses that were already out there in the system that may contain SCORMs and assessments and discussion forums and all that kind of stuff. So my content creation was a separate process. Next, we need to set up our, and actually, sorry, I don't want to click on completion yet. Next, we want to set up our messages. So messages are the notifications that are going to go out to the users. These will go out via email as well as showing up in the person's dashboard in the notifications area. So we can say you've been enrolled on program, and the system will automatically populate what the program name is. If you click on the help icon, you can find out other variables that the system can fill in. So for example, if I want to say, you've been assigned this program and here is the due date, I'm just going to go and select this. You're now enrolled on program, and it'll say our program name, which is Help Desk Onboarding. It is due on, and it's going to automatically populate the due date. Now, the reason that we want to use these variables rather than sticking a specific date in there is that it may differ for different users. If we're giving you 30 days to, 45 days, I think, overall to complete this. No, 35 days overall to complete this. If you start it in June, you're going to have a different due date than if you start it in October, just depending on when you get hired. So we're going to say, go complete these things. Here's the date that's going to be populated by the system automatically. This message goes to the learner. It can also be copied to their manager, and you can add additional information for the manager if you want to. There are other events that can also trigger messages to go out. So if a program is due, we can say, 2 weeks before the program is due, send a message. If the program is overdue, meaning they haven't completed it by the due date we specified, we can also send messages based on individual course sets. So I've seen programs that have like monthly coursework that we're expecting someone to do. And so we can say, 2 weeks before this particular course set. And then there can be a learner follow-up that could include like a link to a survey or something like that. I'm just going to go ahead and save changes. So the final piece to do is then to assign the program, literally make it live for our users to go and access. And we do that by assigning it to users. So we can do that based on the organization they're a part of, the position that they hold, audiences that they're a member of. We can go based on management hierarchy, which means the person they report to, or we can assign individuals. I'm going to assign an individual just because this is my demo site and I know that I have a couple of people set up in here. So I'm going to assign this to learner sample. And I'm going to set a specific due date for them. I could come in and say, you need to complete this by July 31st. Or I can set up a relative date and say, I need you to complete this within so many days of some event. Often I see people use program enrollment, so I can say like, within, let's say 20 days of being enrolled in this program, you need to complete it. So if this were an entire department of individuals, then it would say, complete within 20 days of program enrollment, and the date would vary based on the date the person was enrolled on it. I'm going to go ahead and save changes, and at this point, the system is going to assign this program to the users, and it's going to go live. However, you have to have at least one learner assigned for the program to be live. And in this case, it did not go live. An exception was thrown. That's because we said it was going to take, we guessed it would take about, 35 days for someone to complete this, but we didn't give them that many days. So an exception was thrown, and an exception happens when there's a time allowance issue, if there's an assignment issue, and we can tell the system, oh, you're right, I didn't set enough time for this person, so let's set a realistic due date and assign. And the system will automatically calculate an appropriate due date for this user based on the minimum time we said it would take to complete the work. If that had happened when I wasn't logged in, let's say that we hired someone else and they were automatically added to the program based on their organization, the system would trip that same, if it trips that same exception report, then the administrators will get a notification email letting them know about that issue. So this program is now up and live, and a user can access it. So if we want to, as a learner, I could jump in and take a look at this real quick, and let's do that. Oops. Oh, and apparently I'm forgetting my password. So let's go ahead. We'll just stick as an admin for now, and then come back as our learner in a little bit. Okay. So for a user, they're going to access their programs and certifications typically via their dashboard. So they'll have current learning that will be displayed here that will list any programs and certifications that they may have. And there's also specific blocks for certifications that you'll see. Let's go ahead now and create a certification so you can take a look at that. So again, we're going to go into Learning, Certifications, and like 90% of building a certification looks just like building a program. So we go in, we give it a name, we give it a sequence of courses that we want the person to take. We decide who it's going to be visible to. I'm just kind of popping through these quickly. So let's say in this case, we want the person to take, again, a set of courses, and notice that the competency and the recurring course do not exist as part of a certification. They can only be part of a program. So we'll go, and in this case, we're going to do kind of the same thing. We're going to say that the person needs to do their site orientation. And we'll give them 5 days for that. And then I'm going to add the second set of courses, which was, oops, not site orientation again, sorry, which was Spanish immersion and health and safety. But let's say that we're basically just going to recreate the same program as before, but what we want to do in this case is we want people to come back every year and retake their health and safety training. So in this case, we'll say it takes 30 days to complete those both. And what I can do is come down here to the recertification path. Certification path up top, this is what you do one time. Down below the recertification path is what you do every time after that, unless you've let your program expire. If someone has accidentally let their program expire, then they will have to redo the beginning training again too. So keep that in mind. Though I do believe there is a feature request out there about making it so that people don't have to do that, don't have to take that program again. So with a recertification, I just want people to retake that same health and safety course every year. So I'll just assign that one. And in that case, we're going to say that it only takes 15 days for them to get that completed. Then I'm going to save all my changes. We do have an additional tab that we'll need to fill out just around certification, because we need to define how long the certification is good and when someone can come back and recertify. So we do that using recertification date. And the recertification date can be one of three things. It can be based on when the person completed the certification the first time. So if I completed it on December 31st, next year, I would, hopefully I need to complete it by December 31st again. Though it's possible I could finish it earlier. Like let's say I finished it, in November next year. Then the following year, I would need to complete it in November again. So that date can actually move around. Using the certification expiry date, and I'm going to explain this, but you can actually go into help and read an explanation of this as well. Using the certification expiry date basically uses the person's last expiration date to calculate the next expiration date for when they need to recertify by. And you can also use a fixed expiry date. So this doesn't allow the date to float around. It basically says if you completed this on December 31st the first year, you need to complete it by December 31st every year following that. It doesn't matter if you complete it earlier, you still have to complete it by that same. So we're going to say that our certification is good for 1 year, and we're going to give people 1 month before their certification expires to go back and take the course again. So the way this behaves, again, save this, is that my user comes in, they go and they complete their certification the first year, and they do all of the courses that were in the original certification path. So they take their site orientation, and then these other two are unlocked, and they take those as well. At that point, they are completely done with 2 of those courses. In a year, actually in 11 months, they're going to get a notification that they need to go and complete their recertification. They will just essentially have to retake their health and safety course. You can have a series of courses here. It doesn't have to just be one. That's just what I happen to use. And you don't have to have them even repeat one of their old courses. This might be like a simplified refresher course that just has some of the information from before, or just has like the hands-on certification that you need to complete again. So, excuse me, you get to decide which piece, like how you want to structure this. But really, it's kind of a straightforward process for the person to go through. Now, I'm going to jump in very quickly just as a learner because I want you to see what this program looks like from a learner's perspective. I'm just going to cheat a little bit because I forgot my learner's password. So I'm going to log in as my learner. And now I can see that I have 2 different programs in here. One was actually from earlier today when I set up a program. But I can go and I can see my new employee onboarding, and I can see help desk onboarding. And if I click into these, I'll be able to see the courses that I need to take. So let's go ahead and let's say that we're going to do the site orientation. So I'm going to come and I'm going to click on my course. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to complete this course. Then I'll be able to move on to the next course set. See, I have 1 unavailable set, and that's because I haven't completed this first set of coursework first. If I click on the program name, I get a bigger view of the entire program. So I can see how I was assigned to my program. I can see my course sets and my dates, my overall progress. And then down below, it actually does show me the other training I need to complete. It just doesn't let me into it. So notice that these are not available for me. So those are the big pieces when it comes to programs and certifications. It's really about taking my training, putting it in order, setting up prerequisites, setting up any refreshers or things like that that I need to do if I do need to come back and recertify year after year and make those choices. And you get to experience programs over on the Totara community site because we do have programs set up for certifications. So you go and you complete a bunch of independent courses, and then you receive an overall certification based on having completed all of those courses. I'm just going to pop up my PowerPoint and just finish out with a couple more slides just to kind of talk you through resources. Pass these. There we go. Apologies. There we go. So if you're ready for more, come to the Totara community site. There is a course specifically on programs and certifications that covers versions 9 through 12. There weren't a lot of changes in there, so you can see how that functionality works, walk through simulations and things like that. We have a couple of upcoming webinars. We have one coming up on August 7th on 360 feedback, well, actually August 8th if you're in New Zealand or in Australia. So 360 feedback, talking about basically employee reviews and feedback forms. And then August 21st, 22nd, we'll be talking about appraisals. So that's more about performance management and having hierarchical appraisals that involve your manager and other folks to do reviews and pull in learning and things like that that we want to review as part of our employee progress. So thank you for listening. Feel free to get in touch. You can drop me an email if you have questions. You can reach out on Twitter. You can also join us on the Totara.community site and ask questions in the community forums. So I'm going to go ahead and close my slides, but if you have any other questions, let me know. I can hang out for just another couple of minutes. I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Have a great rest of your day.